Are the Leafs in trouble? Is Phil Mickelson in trouble? Canadian curling, is it in trouble? All that and more. It's Sports QuaranTV. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sports QuaranTV. Chris Dobson, Gerry Green coming at you. Guys, we have a great show, Gerry. It feels like every time it's in between weeks, I know we chat a lot during the week. This is probably my favorite thing to do. So anyways, good to see everybody back here. Jerry, we're going to start right off the hop with the QMJHL. Some news came out this week. Some games have been postponed again due to COVID. Is it starting to feel like Groundhog Day at this point? Are we starting to feel like, is it back? What's happening?
Yeah, do you remember what we were doing a year ago, Chris?
Probably talking about
February.
A few games being postponed.
They weren't playing in February. I remember they restarted in March, the first week or two of March, and then played until the end of March, maybe a little bit into April, and then started that 9-game round robin and all that sort of thing that went on. And Halifax and right. Cape Breton were playing Charlottetown. This is a year ago. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
It seems like a long time ago, but it was at this point last year that was all going on, where New Brunswick was shut down, but Charlottetown and Nova Scotia,
right.
PI and Nova Scotia were still going. Speaking of Charlottetown, they continue to sit on top of the standings, Chris. They got a little bump in the road this week when Bathurst went in and got a victory in Charlottetown in overtime. And I really think, and I've said this more than once, really, you look at both of those two teams on paper, and you look at St. John on paper and the way St. John is surging as well. A few bumps in the road for them too. They're trying to get to know each other. But three awesome teams that I don't think the Shawinigans or the Sherbrucks or the Quebecs are going to be able to beat. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the end result come the time that the Memorial Cup starts. But what I'm trying to say is I love the competition in the Maritime Division.
You know what? You said this a couple of weeks ago, and I actually fully agree with you. I think you're going to see two Maritime teams representing the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League in the Memorial Cup this year in St. John. I think, all the talent, and I'm not trying to take away from the talent in Quebec, but you talked about Charlottetown. Bathurst is a good hockey team as well. You've been pumping their tires for weeks since the trade period started. St. John's never down and out. I mean, there's a couple times where I see a couple mishaps on a team that's hosting a Memorial Cup, and I don't know. There's a few things that I didn't love, but there's other side of things like, the game they played the other night. Philip Daou had his first career hat trick in the QMJHL. Yeah. Great to see. But these games that I love to watch, I've been watching a lot of the Halifax Mooseheads games too, Gerry. And I can tell you, there's certain things that I've absolutely loved to see. And there's other things where there's a lot of grit there. And I don't know what's changed in Elliot Desnoyers' pattern or, Zachary Leroux's patther for that matter. Because, I mean, we've always talked about Zach Leroux and playing on that edge. And I think that's what Nashville saw when they drafted him. But with Elliot Desnoyers, it just seems like he's crossed that line a few times more than I've used to seeing him. And I don't know if that's something that Philadelphia told him, hey, you know what? We'd like to see more from you in this aspect. Maybe not dirty per se, of course, because I like Elliot. I've known Elliot a long time. I've interviewed him many times. Great young man. But overall, he's the guy in Halifax. He's your leader. He's and Halifax is playing some really good hockey. Now, they've had some late comebacks. There's some late leads blown, and they've lost some important games. But overall, I like what the Mooseheads are doing. And, we were a little disappointed.
Could it be about, his frustration from God bless Halifax, by still being in Halifax and where he could be and what he could be doing? Do you think that's in the back of his mind? Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously?
Of course. I absolutely think that. Do I know that? No. But do I think that? Yes. And we got to talk about Moncton real quick. I mean, they had some great games over the last week. I mean, some big come from behind wins as well. The people are starting to refer to them as the comeback kids of all time now.
Cardiac.
Max Barbashev. Cardiac. Yeah. Max Barbashev playing great. It's fun watching a team be so cohesive, and it looks like they're playing for their brotherhood. And that locker room must be one of they look like a Toronto Blue Jays locker room to me. They look like they're always having a good time, and I love watching them.
Well, I'm excited about the rest of the season, the way we're going to go. And we don't talk about as much as we would. And just a quick point on Jason Clark and what he's done in Bathurst since arriving. He's 11-1-2 since arriving in Bathurst, Chris. And I hear he rules with an iron fist. So maybe that's good for the guys on the North Shore because they're playing some good hockey right now.
Let's stay on the ice, but change leagues, because we got to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs quickly. And that is, as we record this show, the Leafs have now lost 3 in a row. They're now without Jake Muzzin as well. Looks like he'll be out for a very long time. Are the Leafs in trouble?
Well, I don't know about trouble. The whole Toronto sports media seems to think, the Leafs might be pulling a Kuznetsov here, and what Tampa Bay had done down the stretch. And Kuznetsov hadn't played all season, but he arrives in the playoffs. If Jake Muzzin, who seriously hurt himself and has had some concussion issues in his career as recently as earlier in this season, is put on what they call the long-term IR. Then if he does come back in the playoffs, his salary doesn't count, but he has about a $5.5 million salary that the Leafs could then use to acquire maybe what might be a missing piece, a la Tampa Bay, when they got, I think it was David Savard was part of what
Correct.
made that all happen, Chris. So maybe, that is happening. They will have their bumps in the road. It seems like the second line's not performing, but we see them so close under a microscope all the time because Toronto sports media loves to talk about them, and I hate to talk about them.
The Leafs rank 31st in 5-on-5 save percentage. Defense is the biggest hole they've got right now. Their bottom four, outside of Riley and TJ Brody, which are more than fine. But now that Muzzin's gone, and he's going to be gone a long time, you are right. Kyle Dubas made it very clear after last season that there's no more chances. I mean, there's been rumors floating around about blowing up this nucleus. I mean, your top line brings in about $41 million a year. Mm-hmm. They couldn't beat a $750,000 goaltender in the Montreal Canadiens last week. There's a problem there. But overall, you're going to see them be extremely active during the trade period. Rumors are floating around that the Leafs are in on a guy like Ben Sherratt. They're in on a guy like Mark Giordano out of Seattle as well. I mean, they're making cap space to solidify this blue line. Offensively isn't a problem for them. Defensively is. People are crapping on Jack Campbell right now, but until they get some guys in front of him, Jack Campbell's proven what he can do. He's a winner, and this Leafs team can win, but if they don't fix that blue line, they're going to be the laughing stock of the country, and Kyle Dubas will be on the first plane out of Toronto as soon as you see it.
And the trade bait is predominantly defensemen in the top five pieces of trade possibilities, including Sherratt and John Klingberg from Dallas. You mentioned Giordano and the Chychrun, of course, from
Jacob Chychrun, the number one. But
yes,
nobody
from Arizona.
The Leafs can't afford Chychrun. They can't.
I know. I think Klingberg might be a nice fit for the Leafs. But I still look at what Calgary has done already to get ahead of the curve in the trade with getting Toffoli, and also what it seems like they might be in the Giordano. Wouldn't that be a fairy tale type of ending to get him to come back to Calgary and help their defense? But the other team that I'm interested in the East, Chris, and I watched them the other night, was the Florida Panthers. Alexander Barkov was taken second overall. Do you remember who was taken ahead of him in that 2013 draft?
Nate the Great.
Yes. And, they're not far off when it comes to points per. The Barkov's at 1.11 points per game. And Nate, who has played more games, Nathan McKinnon, is 1 point per game. And Jonathan Huberdeau is another huge piece there. And he was taken third overall in 2011, Chris. And it was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Gabriel Landeskog that were ahead of him. So you see where the Colorados and the Floridas utilized those drafts a few years ago, and now are main contenders in the East and the West.
Look, only thing I'll say about Florida is I would love for them to be and continue and remain competitive, but we were having the same conversation about the Florida Panthers last year, and come playoff time, it's a different story. If they can stay on top of it, if they can continue to compete, I would love to see Florida do what they're going to do. I just don't think it's possible. That's just my thoughts on it. I love Florida. I love Huberdeau, big supporter, huge Barkov fan. I just don't think they get it done. But Jerry, we've got to move on, because the big story this week coming out, of course, is with the PGA, Phil Mickelson. It's interesting to see what's happening right now. Of course, Phil losing a lot of sponsorships this week.
Let's preface it a little bit, Chris, about what actually Phil was trying to do. He was trying to get a super golf league that was being backed by the Saudis to a big money type of league, and trying to get players and trying to lure players from the PGA.
Right, for big money, like big money. And there were some comments that were made off the cuff, and this was back in November. They've come to light now, and Phil remorsefully, regrettably, put out issued a public statement saying has apologized. Now, I guess overall, to me, the question is, I don't think this is going to long-term hurt Phil. And I know this is a topic that you're going to hear from us a little later on because it's in our list, but overall, this is a huge story. And I mean, if you look at golfers who've had scandals circulating around them, don't forget John Daly for the longest time, Tiger Woods, of course, some big name golfers. Phil's going to recover just because he lost a couple sponsorships, and they're big sponsorships. I'm not trying to brush that off. He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
KPMG's massive, but he's going to be fine.
Well, Chris, the other thing is he's 51 years old. And whether or not he was going to play in the Super League or whatever they call that now. What do they call it? They don't call it the seniors. They call it the Champions League, the Champions event in the PGA, where the guys over 50 play there. I think he played a couple of events there last year and really dominated. I mean, he's still playing the PGA as well. But it rang to me as soon as I heard about it. I first of all, I thought the talking off the cuff, I think, was taken out of context. I really think Phil's telling the truth there in regards to talking, he thought, off the record. And we talk about stuff all the time in our privacy of our own homes that you wouldn't want other people to hear. It happens for everybody.
What are you talking about? Spill the beans, Jerry. What are you talking about at home?
But what it rang to me was, I remember when Bobby Hull went out on a limb in trying to form the WHA. He was the big crown jewel that was drawn into the WHA, a rival league with the NHL with all their strict rules and how players weren't being paid what they were owed. And that's where Phil's standing up there. He's saying the LPGA, or the PGA rather, is not distributing. They're making tons of money and the players aren't rewarded accordingly. And that's part of the reason why he got involved with this. And it seemed just like when Bobby Hull did it in the WHA and how it changed hockey.
Jerry, we've got a little over 3 minutes left, and we're going to move on to the NBA because the NBA had their All-Star game this weekend. I want to get your thoughts first and foremost. Do you like the All-Star game? I know we've talked about All-Star games before, although it was the National Hockey League one. NBA All-Star game, to me, I mean, it's for the fans. Seeing a guy like Steph Curry shoot from half and just drain it, walk away every time it's super fun. But there were a couple neat aspects to it. The top 75 players presentation at halftime. I thought that was great TV.
Chris, I must admit I didn't watch much of it. I saw all the highlights of it. What I did like was that, again, they're a league that is thinks outside the box in regards to trying to make the game itself entertaining. And they did with this new wrinkle about how the end of the All-Star game is supposed to end and have a goal or a score to reach. I thought that was very intriguing.
The Elam ending, yeah. It's an interesting strategy for sure. But again, if you look at all the All-Star leagues and like their skills competitions and all that thing, like the NBA typically this year, I'm going to kind of tone it down a bit because I didn't like the dunk contest this year, not from years past. Anyway. Yeah,
I have a point on that too. Go ahead.
I was going to say, for me, it just wasn't as exhilarating, but I love the fact that the NBA goes all out and it's all about the fans. The kids are there. You see the big names, even if they're not in the All-Star game, they're on the sidelines. Like even, like your Steph Curry's, your Shaqs of the world, for example, they're still there talking to the fans. I love that, where you're not going to get guys like Ovechkin in the NHL who's just looking for an excuse not to go, or Sidney Crosby. You know what I mean? Like, it's great for the fans of the NBA. And I love that about the NBA. Probably my favorite All-Star game out there outside of Major League Baseball. But overall, I like what they do. And I like that they try to get creative.
The dunk contest itself, to me, has run its course. I mean, it's starting to be so hard to come up with new creative ideas when in its heyday back in the 90s and even in the early 2000s, or specifically Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins, and how high they got in the air and how thunderous their slam dunks were. That doesn't cut it anymore. They have to be super creative. And from the highlights I saw, it was so hard to come up with new ideas and guys fumbling and bumbling with the ball. I think it's really run its course. And there was no big names that I saw that were involved. Right. Even LeBron wasn't involved in the dunk contest. So I think maybe it's run its course, but it really had a heyday back in the 90s, didn't it?
I fully agree. And they call it the Rising Stars Dunk Challenge or whatever they want to call it, because they want the young guys coming in. People don't want that.
Sorry, yes.
Back in the day, they want the LeBrons, they want the Kobes, they wanted the Michael Jordans of the world. These are the guys you want dunking in these dunk contests. That's why these fans come to these things. Overall, it's a good look for these young guys to get into the game. But as far as I'm concerned, I fully agree with you. I think that watching this dunk contest has been, not as fun as it has been for the last little bit. But overall, hey, it's an All-Star game. It's for the fans, and I really enjoyed watching it. All right, Jerry, it's time. Let's debate this, starting with Freddie Freeman, the big news, Major League Baseball. If he does become available, should the Toronto Blue Jays be a serious contender for him?
You're asking me?
Of
No.
course I am.
I don't know. I can't believe Atlanta would let him go anyways. So
Maybe
I
it's
think
beyond
but
Atlanta at this point. Maybe it's does he want to stay?
How does Atlanta reward a guy who's been with the franchise since he started playing and guides them to the promised land this last year, and who in the city of Atlanta is renowned as a hero? I don't know how he gets away, but let's say he does. Let's say he does get away, and Toronto wants to acquire him. Why? What's he going to do? Is he going to play first base? Well, Vlad Guerrero plays first base. How many times on this show have we talked about what a tremendous season Vladdy had and how his first base play improved? He had more confidence there and maybe took that confidence to the plate. There's no way you mess with that. You don't put him back on third base. And where else are you going to put Freeman, Chris? Where are you going to put him if you sign him?
Okay. First of all, if you have an opportunity and financially it fits your model, you sign one of the best players in baseball, one of the best leaders in baseball. Look, the Jays have a young room. They have a lot of fun.
You got Springer. That's
okay, and now you add Freddie Freeman. I'm sorry. If he's available and wants to sign with your organization, you'd be a damn fool to say no. And any fans out there, if you don't disagree with me, I agree with your concept about Vlad Jr. I mean, trying to figure it out. And it's not like one of them is going to move to the DH, but if you're Vlad Jr. and the option to come on in, like, you have an opportunity to put you over the edge. I mean, don't kid yourself here. The AL East is going to still be a very competitive division next year, and you want the edge. The Jays won a lot of ball games last year. They probably should have made the postseason, but they didn't. And now right, but you bring a guy like Freddie Freeman into your lineup, there's absolutely no way he does not make that team. Okay, but there's no way Freeman doesn't make your ball club a better ball club.
Okay, my point is, yes, my point is, no, Chris, that's not in debate here, but what is at debate is whether or not they should get into a bidding war. Yes, throw a bid in there, but don't go be going back and forth. Have the opportunity. What do they say? Knock on the door and put your bid inside the door there and see if he likes it. But don't go chasing him. That's all I'm saying. Yes, they can certainly dip their toe in that water, but don't go chasing them.
No, that's why I said, I made it very clear. If financially it makes sense and it works, then yes, you have to sign him. I don't think Freddie Freeman's going to drag this thing out. If he chooses not to re-sign in Atlanta, this isn't going to be a Trevor Bauer situation where they're trying to wait and go back and, I'm not sure what I'm doing, make teams play against each other. Wherever Freeman wants to sign, he's going to sign there. No ifs, ands, or buts. The debate topic was, should the Jays sign him? And the answer is absolutely. If he's available and wants to play, you're damn right you should sign him.
But not at first base.
Sure. All right.
Okay.
Topic number 2. Let's go. Should Major League Baseball ban the shift?
It's interesting we're talking about baseball and this time of year because there's
right.
a little bit of more sunshine out lately, but still snow and rain. But my point about the shift is it's about the analytics. Analytics is sneaking into hockey. It was heavily into baseball long before it was in hockey. I just think it's taking away from the tradition of the game. You play straight up. For everybody plays. There's a left fielder, a right fielder, and a center fielder, and everybody plays their position accordingly. To swing players over to one side because the analytics say that the guy hits to that side, I say, well, why can't you just, as a professional baseball player, and your batting average would have to go down if you got a shift on you all the time, or if you're that good, you get it by the shift. Try to hit the other way, confuse the defense, and make them rethink their analytics. I just hate the idea of the shift.
I don't have a problem with it. I absolutely, I love the competitiveness of the game. And if you think you can get an advantage inside the rules, of course, and as of right now, there is none. Defensively, why shouldn't you capitalize on that?
Defense is boring, by the way, anyways.
That's not part of the debate, because there'd be no debate. I fully agree with you. But overall, as far as the shift
ban the shift.
Yeah, absolutely not. Let it go. Baseball's funner this way. Look, if you can get the upper hand and get the edge on this, by all means, do whatever you have to do within limits, of course. But overall, I have no problem with the shift. If you can get in the other team's head by doing so, by all means, I'm all for it, as long as you're not stealing signs. If you're going to fix a problem with baseball first, fix the on-field umpiring before you fix the shift, and then we'll call it a day.
Well, then why don't they just go to slow pitch rules and get a rover so you can have a rover between the outfielders and the infielders? How about that?
That's what we need. We need to see Vladdy Guerrero chugging a beer during men's league on the first baseline. It's exactly what you need to see. Anyways, let's move on because we clearly don't agree on that. Last but not least, let's talk again about the QMJHL. And I want to get your thoughts. Will the QMJHL get all 68 games in this year?
I appreciate, and I've said this many times in this program, what the Q did last year in the only major junior league and one of the only leagues to really crown a legitimate champion that everybody had a shot at winning the championship. I really salute them for that. They're determined they want to get these 68 games in. And here we are in late February, and some games are dropping by the wayside. They're going to have to be made up somewhere. And then you're going to have a major wear and tear on these young athletes that are going to have to play a bunch of games in a bunch of days. It just came through a weekend where I think at least 3 or 4 teams in the Atlantic Division played 3 games in 3 days. And that is playing around the Atlantic provinces. It's not even going to Quebec when you do that. So I think if you do play the 68 games, it's going to cut down on the playoffs, the amount of time you have between the end of the regular season and when the Memorial Cup starts. So I'd rather have a lengthy playoff rather than have an extended regular season. And again, I think we've got to have a buffer zone there for the ultimate, that is, there is going to be games that are going to have to fall off the schedule.
So I'll say no. I think with the way that, yes, there are a couple games now being pushed because of COVID, but all signs point to this week. I mean, the maritime governments are getting involved now. I saw that Nova Scotia will, as of March 21st, all mandates, including masks, will be lifted. All arenas will be back at capacity. Nova Scotia, everything's flowing well there. In New Brunswick, it seems to be where some of these pushes are happening. The playoffs have already been pushed. The Memorial Cup has already been pushed. The QMJHL will get all 68 games in this year. And I think it's because they're priding themselves on that. With the Memorial Cup being in St. John this year, I see no reason why the QMJHL will not get all 68 games in. I do agree with you, which is tough for me during a debate this topic, saying that it is a little tougher on the athletes, and I do feel for them a little bit. But they did have an extended break, Jerry, during the holidays. And, it's a lot of hockey to play in a short period of time, but things have been pushed on. I have absolutely no doubt the QMJHL has done it right. I can't see any scenario where things would have to blow up in a bad way for the QMJHL to not get all 68 games in.
And Chris, if I'm 18, 19, and 20, and I'm going to play every other day, I'd be excited. I mean, they should be, and their diets and their rest are certainly monitored. So, but you know what I mean by, I still think it's going to be taxing on them down the stretch, and then to take them into maybe a shorter playoff than necessary.
Well, Jerry, let's get right into it. It's time to close this thing off. Let's hit the wrap, because that's everybody's favorite part of the show. Starting with Aus Hockey. Give me an update. She's back.
Well, haven't talked about it in a while. Of course, the Reds still lead the AUS with an 18-2 record. They, along with the Moncton Aigle Bleu, are going to be in Acadia and St. Mary's this weekend. Aigle Bleu are in the bottom of the standings. They just have a 5-15 record. The only team challenging UMB at this point, Chris, is St. FX, who are 14-6. The regular season ends on March 5th. Aaron Rodgers back in the news. What's he talking about now, Chris?
Well, after a 12-day cleanse of the mind, Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show this week, after a very weird, cryptic Instagram post he put out, basically thanking everybody except Chris Dobson and Gerry Green, talking, just saying how thankful he is, and seeing posts and how much his life has improved, and how much it's impacted the whole COVID fiasco that took place. Wanted to apologize. But he was on Pat McAfee this week saying, hey, we are not going to make a decision this week on my playing future, because everybody wants to know what's going to happen. But he also said he's not going to let this thing drag out very long either. So once he makes that decision, he's going to make it. And the good news about a guy like Aaron Rodgers is, whether you love him or you hate him, once this decision's made, he came back off back-to-back MVPs. He's playing football again. The question is, where will it be? In Green Bay? Based off his MVP speech in that Instagram post, it sounded like he was saying goodbye. But again, who knows? These athletes are all crazy, in my opinion. Jerry, the Olympics racked up, and Canada only came away with 1 curling medal.
That really bothers me, Chris. Don't say that like that. Yes, Brad Gushu's rink, who were very close to going to the gold medal game, but didn't get there because of Adine, that's from Sweden, who ends up winning the gold medal. But my point is about this. Canada, the Canadian Curling Association, might have to rethink where their curling teams come from in regards to who are the teams that are going to represent them internationally, because Adine and Moat from Great Britain, those are 2 teams that are paid by their countries to prepare for major events, be it in North America or internationally, wherever they may happen. So I think Canada might have to start doing the put again an all-star team that's going to go to some of these events. That'll be interesting to see if the Canadian Curling Association may be a little bit hurting from the fact they only came away with one medal from the Olympics. Chris, Major League Baseball, the talks continue. What's up?
Well, look, there's less than a week left, Major League Baseball said, before they decided whether or not they're going to start postponing regular season games. And there's still quite a few topics that are still in debate right now. These topics are the competitive balance tax, still at $31 million. You know, the pre-arbitration bonus pool's at $95 million. Minimum salary, $135,000 a year. Draft lottery, 3 picks. There's a lot to cover here in less than a week. I do not see any scenario where Major League Baseball gets these games off the ground and it's all going to work out. I would be genuinely shocked, but we will definitely keep our eyes open because I miss me some baseball. Gerry, with the Olympics now over, it seemed like the ratings were down.
They were, Chris. The only thing that really caught a rating, and it's because of the rivalry, it's because of the intensity, it's because it's Canada and the United States, two of the best countries when it comes to producing women hockey players, was that gold medal game between the USA and Canada was the most highly rated game in not only the USA, but throughout the Canada's coverage too, with CBC and TSN and Sportsnet as well. What it is, Chris, is I think the whole North American audience, and the internet's involved here too, because you know the results before they happen, before you can see them live, because most of the live events were happening in the middle of the night. Who's up watching that? So I would easily see every time it's in a time zone 12 hours away, I can see how North American audiences can get turned off quickly, and thus the ratings go down. Sean Avery, Chris, we love him, don't we? What's he up to?
The ultimate pigeon to ever play in the National Hockey League. Coming out of retirement, joins the Orlando Solar Bears in the ECHL. If I've ever seen a publicity stunt, this is one of them. This whole thing created a fiasco and a feud online as well. I mean, he was online and on a podcast, trash talking Matthew Barnaby. Now Matthew Barnaby's battering back on Twitter saying, anybody in that division, sign me and I will put him through a wall, I promise you. But either way, I mean, I guess if that's what you want to do to stay in shape, really could care less about Sean Avery at this point. He's toast to me. That's the wrap on that. Anyways, Gerry, this has been another great show in the books. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. We hope you've had as much fun as we've had. We will see you next week.